First off, I want to start out by thanking all of our channel members. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much. Okay, CachyOS fans, here it is. CachyOS is an incredible operating system. There, I said it. Now stick around though, as I do want to share my thoughts and ask you one simple question. Right, let's get into it. Now, I have never really been a fan of Arch, not because it's bad or anything, it's the hype and the noise around it. CachyOS seems to have that same kind of hype. So why do Arch and CachyOS users just have to tell everyone? I mean, I'd be much happier if they just said, hey, I use Linux by the way. In fact, yeah, let's start that trend. Pop it in the comments right now. I use Linux by the way. Anyway, before going any further, I just want to be upfront about something. I run Fedora. It is my home, and I have not found a reason to switch to anything else. And I've tried quite a few different distros. I prefer the regular release schedule over the rolling release, but I have, however, just installed the Cachy kernel, so let's see how that goes. And it's just a choice, right? It's a preference, and it's nothing to do with quality. CachyOS, as I've said, is an incredible operating system. Its goal is to provide a fast, modern, responsive system that feels ready as soon as you install it, and most of the work is already done, so you can just install it and start using it, and it does that really, really well. Now, I have hundreds of comments about CachyOS, some stating that the system feels exceptionally smooth and snappy, others say it feels complete out of the box with sensible defaults and a clear direction. There is a sense that real thought has gone into how everything fits together. And some members of the channel are using CachyOS right now. They seem to be genuinely happy with it. So it is easy to understand why people would choose it, which is what makes the visibility thing so interesting. You could be watching a video about Ubuntu, Debian or Fedora, and someone will often mention CachyOS. Now, sometimes it fits naturally into the discussion, but other times it feels really unexpected. Either way, the name shows up often enough that it becomes really noticeable. And it kind of made me curious, not about whether CachyOS is good, I think we've established that, but why it feels so present. When you step back and look at Linux more broadly, most people seem to be settling on things like Linux Mint, Ubuntu, Fedora, or whatever it might be. Those distros tend to become part of the background. They do their job and people just move on with their work. CachyOS feels very different in how it exists socially. It sits obviously within the Arch ecosystem, and that brings certain technical traits with it. It uses Pacman as a package manager, which has a reputation for being fast and efficient. Some users mention how responsive it feels when installing or updating software and how simple the commands are once you become familiar with them. As with all Linux distribution, it follows the same file system structure, and that means skills and knowledge carry across systems, which can then make learning and exploring Linux feel more transferable. And that actually brings me on to today's sponsor, Boot.dev. Right now, I am using it to properly understand file systems and navigation in Linux. One area I really wanted to get more comfortable with was file paths and directory navigation. Things like understanding parent directories and knowing when to use absolute paths versus relative paths. These are small details, but they affect everything you do in the terminal. It also covers working directly with files, including tools like head and tail to quickly inspect content, and more and less to read files properly in the terminal. These are real tools you use constantly, and having a structured way to learn them makes a big difference. What I like about Boot.dev is that it turns these concepts into interactive challenges. You are not just reading about them, you are actually using them, which helps build confidence and makes everything feel natural and much faster. All of their content is free to read and watch. The pay plan unlocks the interactive challenges, progress tracking and AI help, and the full learning experience. If you want to check it out, go to Boot.dev and use my code LinuxGamerLife to get 25% off your first year on an annual plan. I'll have the code on the screen, a QR code for you to scan, and the link is in the description. If you listen to the ad, thank you very much. Arch has always carried a certain kind of gravity in the Linux space. It attracts people who like to explore, experiment, and pay attention to the details of their system. That process can make the choice feel more deliberate. CachyOS appears to attract that same kind of intentional attention. It doesn't feel like something people stumble into, it feels more like something they arrive at after hearing about it and seeing it discussed and just deciding to try it. And repeated exposure naturally creates some kind of curiosity. To be honest, it's marketing genius. When a name keeps appearing in conversation, it makes you wonder what people see in it, Trying it becomes a way to understand the experience rather than just simply choosing an operating system. At that point, the decision can start to feel personal. Now, not in a dramatic way, but in the sense that it reflects your exploration and intention. That kind of choice can create a quiet sense of ownership. The positive feeling you get from it will no doubt lead to sharing your experience. When something works well and it feels like a good decision, recommending it to others becomes easy. It's just a natural reaction. It can feel helpful, validating, and it can also feel like being part of something current. There is also the effect of momentum. CachyOS still feels fresh to many. It still feels like something people are discovering. That kind of energy tends to generate conversation. People talk about what feels new, they share what feels exciting. Meanwhile, users of long-established distros often have a quieter relationship with their system. Their focus might move elsewhere. The operating system just becomes a tool rather than a topic. That difference in behavior can also shape perception. A distro does not need to be the most widely used to feel highly visible. It only needs a community that talks about it often enough that its presence stays in circulation. And CachyOS seems to have reached that point. It gives the impression of being something people connect with, and that connection shows up in recommendations, in discussions, in comments, and curiosity from others who encounter it repeatedly. And that says something meaningful. It suggests the experience leaves an impression. CachyOS looks like a genuinely impressive operating system. People building it deserve credit. They have done a fantastic job, and the people using it seem to enjoy it. And that leaves me with one simple question. What was it that made you choose CachyOS? And thanks again to Boot.dev for sponsoring this video and supporting this learning journey.